What's up guys, Thomas here and welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a setup and first flight of the Pavo30 by BetaFPV. Let's see how this thing flies. Alright guys, so I have my flight setup laid out here on the table today. These are the things I'll be using. I did an unboxing and a full specs video on this drone. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link above and below so you can take a look at the specifications. I think you'll be really impressed with those videos. We'll start off with the controller. So obviously if you have an existing controller, it's already set up and ready to go. All you have to do is pair your radio to your drone. In my case, this is a new controller. This is the Jumper T-Lite. This is a pretty impressive radio so far. I did a video, unboxing video on this radio. I'll leave a link down where you can find this. But for right now, I do think this is probably the best radio on the market so far right now. But I personally had to set this up and then pair this up to my drones. Now, as far as the drone here, obviously I unboxed it. This one here is a bind and fly, so everything comes already pre-assembled. A few things to consider here. Obviously, before you do your first flight, you do want to do a thorough pre-flight on this. Make sure there's no loose screws. Propellers are very secure. Your battery is secure. Besides that, you do want to pair your receiver to your transmitter. I had a hard time finding the bind button on this one. Obviously, you have the VTX, which is right underneath, but to find your receiver, it's tucked away in this little part right here, a very small canal, and it's very, very difficult to get to. The next thing you want to do is configure your drone. In this case, I did configure my drone in Betaflight. Because I have a combination of a new controller and a new drone, I have to make sure all those things were done. If you're interested in a video on Betaflight, I will happily do one. I have very basic knowledge on it, but I did get through it and everything seems to be working flawlessly. So now that that's done, we want to talk about the visual part. Obviously, once you have your drone configured in Betaflight, everything seems to be working fine. You do want to connect your drone to your goggles. Now, I don't have any fancy goggles. I'm still using my first basic box goggles that I got with my first drone, but this does the trick very well. I have no problems with this goggles at all, actually. And it has a built-in DVR as well. So I will be using this DVR today to be recording all my flight process today. It's not the highest resolution, but it does work. So now that we have that set up, next thing is about the batteries. I have my batteries right here. I have two 4-cell batteries. These are 850 milliamp hours. This is what is recommended by BetaFPV. They recommend anything between a 750 to an 850 milliamp hour battery. That gives you the best balance of performance and flight times. See you guys, let's go outside, fly this thing, and I will give you my final impressions once we get back. All right guys, we are outdoors now. It's a nice day. It's breezy, I would say around 10 to 15 miles an hour. I've done my pre-flight already, so everything is good. Power on my radio. Time to just change the power output, and I'm going to use my OSD here to get that done. You'll see it on the screen, hopefully. I'm recording. All right, VTX, race band 7, frequency power. I want to go to 350. Doesn't go any higher than that. Save and exit. All right, now we have 350 milliwatts, so we're good to go, guys. So, wish me luck, guys. Let's do it. All right, I'm under the hood here. All right, let's arm this thing. We're ready to rock and roll. right, guys, that was a pretty cool experience. A lot of adrenaline going on there. That was amazing. It's pretty warm outside, but still had a lot of fun flying this Pavo 30. Obviously, we recorded with the DVR here, so some of the footage is kind of grainy, actually what you would see in the DVR or in the goggles. Now, the goggle was a little bit clearer than what you would see in the image here, so take that image for what it's worth. It's not an accurate representation of what I'm seeing in the goggles. All right, so I've been flying these tiny whoops for a while, and they're pretty light. The power or the thrust to weight ratio is pretty good on those drones as well. They're pretty quick and nimble, but this is a whole new beast. This thing is really powerful. Just slight movements of the throttle on the controller give you a big boost in thrust, and that thing just flew off the table pretty quickly, pretty aggressively. So second thing I noticed, I was flying around trying to get a feel for the drone. I typically don't fly low or fast. When I first start flying these drones, I want to get a good feel for it. So it's not the typical experience you would get from a typical FPV video. Now the winds today were around 10 to 15 miles an hour, but the smoothness, the resistance to the wind was a lot noticeable compared to the smaller drones. The next thing I noticed was the clarity of the camera. So I've been using another Caddx camera on my other drone, and this one seems to be just as good. It seems to be a little bit more vibrant, I would say. Flying around, it has a little bit different perspective. I think the angle on this one's a little bit more narrow than the other quad that I have. But yeah, it was pretty clear. This thing has wide dynamic range. I didn't see any issues. It's obviously a bright summer day, so there isn't any issues with darkness or shadows or any kind of high contrast situations. I did notice that when I was flying, it seems to be very, very vibrant, meaning the colors, the saturation was very, very bright. The colors of the roof, the color of the grass was very, very green. There's also a basketball court there you see, very, very blue colors. The only thing that was kind of weird, sometimes I would turn to a brighter area, maybe near the sun, or just turning around, and the saturation would change on the fly, which is kind of weird. You would think the saturation would stay constant, but sometimes I would see just brown grass, and then a few seconds later, the grass would turn really, really green, really, really vibrant and green. So I don't know what's up with that. Not the best situation for if you want to make cinematic footage. Now let's talk about signal strength as far as control signal strength. This is my first time using this controller. This is the Jumper T-Lite. This is supposed to be one of the best controllers out there on the market currently. The only issue I had was on the first flight on my OSD, there was a message on there saying RX lost, so RX signal lost. So at that particular time, I was relatively high. Not super high, honestly, considering what these drones can do. I don't think it was high. But at that time, I did have a signal loss that did show up on my OSD, my goggles, and the drone kind of failed safe for a few seconds. But I did lose altitude, the drone did fall down, and I was able to recover it before it hit the ground. But that was a little concerning there. I flew it and I brought it back down, and surprisingly, guys, I will talk about this a little later, we got 7 minutes of flight time with this battery. I don't think I have very efficient flying skills, but that's pretty cool. 7 minutes on the dot, 7:01 I think it was when I disarmed it. The second battery, this is a new battery that I bought. I bought this a few days after I got my initial battery. This is a higher performance battery with a higher output. So I put that in there, went for a second flight. I strapped this down pretty good to my drone, and there we go, let's go for a flight. So you can see the flight was a little bit more smooth. I was more comfortable with the drone, flying lower, doing more aggressive maneuvers, but I knew I had it strapped down. Because I was concerned about the first signal loss on the first flight, I wanted to see if that was just a random occurrence or if this was just something that repeatedly happened. So I said, okay, let's try it again. Let's go to a little higher altitude. And sure enough, as you can see in the footage, the drone failed safe pretty aggressively. I thought the drone was done actually, because not only it didn't hit just the grass, it hit the concrete. I came to the drone and sure enough, it was all intact. No scratches, nothing. The camera doesn't have a scratch on it. The blades are still good. Everything still looks pretty good. No issues at all on this drone. And I was just surprised, like, how did that happen? How did I not break this drone? So with that said, I'm very hesitant about this receiver in here. I don't think that's the drone fault. I think these receivers are very common. I'll have to find a way to maximize the range. But besides that, the drone flew fine. So I had a third battery, my smallest battery, and I did put it back on there, went for a flight, and it flew pretty good. Now, because it was light as well, it flew a little different. It flew like it was obviously lighter, more pep to it, but I flew it pretty smooth, and then sure enough, I came back pretty early and landed. That was maybe a 2-3 minute flight, so nothing crazy with that battery. That's my third battery. All right, so guys, with that said, this thing flew pretty good. The Pavo30 is a nice drone. I think it's pretty cool. If you don't have a Cinewoop in your arsenal, I would recommend this one. I would definitely recommend this over the 95X, only because they've made a lot of improvements on this drone to supersede the 95X. This doesn't have any crazy advanced features on here that the 95X, they just improve on the features and the design of this one. So if you're gonna buy a Cinewoop anyways, you might just buy one that's capable, that can carry a full-size GoPro, maybe an SMO 4K or a naked GoPro, and they already have the wire here for that as well. Besides that, it's a 3-inch quad, so it has more thrust, it can carry more payload, it has a longer flight time. So I do recommend this drone if you are looking for a Cinewoop. Now, on the BakeryPilot score, this thing gets a 4 out of 5, a 4 out of 5 stars, in my case, 4 out of 5 loaves. That's a pretty good score. There's some things that I wish they would improve on. Obviously, the receiver, in my case, that's not reassuring. I wish that wasn't an issue. And also, I guess, this drone is manufactured very well. It looks really good. The shape, the color, everything seems to be pretty well designed. The battery life isn't bad, and I still have yet to use my mount here for my camera. So next couple of videos I will be doing will be on this. I'll try to get a camera for this and see how this thing performs, if there's any jelloing on here. But for now, the actual camera on here is pretty cool. So yeah guys, what do you guys think? If you have any questions about this drone, leave them down in the comments below. I would happily answer those. Like I said, this is a new drone on the market. There's not too many reviews or in-depth coverage on this drone. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. And while you're there, please consider subscribing to the channel. I appreciate that. And you can take a look at other videos I have on the channel pertaining to this drone and other drones that I've done in the past, whether it be camera drones or FPV. So yeah guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.